Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome back to the Daily Southampton, part of the Global Sports Podcast Network. My name is Greg Elliott, and I'm once again joined today by my good friend and wonderful co-host, Zach Ingo Finch. How you doing, mate? You all right?
I'm all right. We're slowly trawling through all of these days without Saints to think about, despite the fact that we're still thinking about Saints, mind you. But
struggling to know whether it's a blessing or a curse at this point in the season, really. Like,
it's a
rest
bit
of the
weird, isn't
season,
it?
we've loathed the international breaks, but actually it's almost been nice to sort of decompress, not have to worry about it.
I don't know, because Taylor Harwood-Bellis was injured and then returned to the club, and Jan Bednarek went out with another head injury from Poland yesterday. So, to be honest, the international break, which should have been
Don't
all of
worry
our
about
players
it,
to,
mate. We got top quality centre backs left to fill those positions, such
oh,
as
you're right,
Joe
Joe
and
Aribo,
Kyle Walker-Peters. It's
Paul
fine.
Onuachu, his centre back credentials. We just want to shove someone that's 6-7 foot, win all the headers, get rid of it.
Yeah. Well, upsetting injuries aside, we actually thought we'd take a step away from Saints a bit today and go back and do another England-based episode. And sort of, we had an episode last week looking forward to the World Cup qualifiers and starting group, and now we thought we'd have a little bit of a reflection on how they went and go from there, really. And I mean, 2 wins, but 2 games that, I mean, if we weren't winning, what are we doing, right? So it almost brings to the question, almost like we've mentioned previously in one of our Room 101 episodes, of what is the point in these international breaks, Zach?
Oh, Greg. I couldn't tell you, other than to see the introduction of Thomas Tuchel as the new England manager, which was just looked a bit weird. I'm just like, oh, look, it's the guy that ran Chelsea running the English national team. Fine. Like, I don't have any strong, crazy patriotic feelings when it comes to, like, the England manager should be English and this, that, and the other. Like, as I've pointed out before, like, I'm kind of like, allow people to transfer internationally.
Yeah.
It's like, does it really matter at this point? But look, I understand that for some people, England are important. English football is very important. Without the international quality that we demand, the leagues that we play in, wouldn't be at the level that they are. So, as much as I'm not a big personal fan of it, I can understand why uh, it's important. And when it comes to like qualifiers and all that kind of stuff, like you need it, right? Like if not, it ends up sort of like Eurovision, where you've just got the same people playing all the time just because they contribute the most money to world football.
Yeah.
And plus, it's like
some kind of European Super League, was that?
Look, Oscar already upset quite a few people with his comments on the Super League, right? Like that wasn't, the idea. People thinking he wanted to replace the entirety of the Premier League with the Super League, because again, like it's difficult when we do these clips, right, guys? Because like when we clip for social media bits and pieces, unless you want to put like a 15-minute clip in, 9 times out of 10 you lose a bit of context here and there. Because we're also all 3 of us. Actually, I think Oscar's probably more to the point. But like me and Greg specifically, will start a point and then finish that point 5 minutes later. You can't really clip that. However, yeah, it's difficult, Greg. But where it's at is, like it or not, international football is going to be a big part of the way that people consume football. And without having the goal to play for your country or to play for specifically England for young English players, it's a big source of ambition, and it's a thing that gets them going and ends up making players better, in my opinion.
You're right, and so it should be. I mean, it should be the proudest moment of your life to step out in your country's shirt and represent your country. And far be it from me to belittle it as much as it takes the real football away. You also, I guess, don't want tournaments where that's the first time any teams got together in 4 years or 2 years since the last major tournament, and they have like a 3-day training camp, and then that's it. So
I think it would make it significantly more exciting. I think that, like, you know, if suddenly a bunch of players are randomly playing together for the first time in forever, you would have far more upsets that are significantly more exciting.
yeah, maybe. I don't think the games would be very good. I know that it's not like a direct comparison.
Are they good now? Did you
I don't know.
see?
Well, that might be a valid point, but I mean, my contrasting opinion is like, you remember before they changed it, or you're a big NFL guy like me, the old Pro Bowl the week before the Super Bowl, where they used to just get the best players from the league, each league, to play against each other, and you just had the worst game in like the entire season, because it's just not a game that you can train together for 3 days and pick up. Football is at least slightly more intuitive than that, and you probably could piece a bit of a half decent team together, but
Mate,
no, mate.
not to talk about Southampton, but come on. like by
You're
your
right.
logic, they should be a league to at least able to play a little bit. But who knows? When you get the basics stripped away from you, mate, I don't know nowadays. You know, too many people trying to hoof the ball up to the top while somebody's trying to hold it back in the bottom right-hand corner. I can't remember what it was. Someone's tweet went viral that's like, hey, do you want the international game is great for people that want to hoof it up the top again. It's
Yeah.
like, are you a person that can kick a ball really, really far up the field? Boy, do I have a type of football for you. And then we're talking about players such as like James Rodriguez and stuff that became really good off the back of international football.
Yeah.
But
I don't know, but like watching the England games, we'll touch on it a bit more in the sort of the next part of our show, but it's just so boring, isn't it? Like,
well,
a team substantially better than another team choosing not to put their foot on the gas and just play the ball around and play the safe option, and then somehow, get a win, get a goal. Like, Harry Kane scored a Paul Arnachu style goal. Like,
it's true. But again, like,
few moments of wonder because there's that quality of player on the pitch, but I don't
well,
know.
yeah, and that's the thing, right? That's the bits that we kind of hope for, and then when we get to these sort of semi-finals and quarterfinals, and you watch them with hope and anticipation, and the game somehow doesn't get more exciting, and you usually just end up frustrated. And I can't remember what game it was. I think it was still a group game, to be fair. Last year, when I went to the Eras tour with my wife, there was an England game on, and obviously it meant that it was this weird sort of strange atmosphere where outside Wembley it was like two opposing teams, where you had a bunch of England fans that obviously gone to the fan zone to watch it, and then just a bunch of people dressed in Taylor Swift merch. but before, like I said to my wife wanted to relax. We'd been out all day, so we got back to the hotel, and I started watching the England game, and she fell asleep and napped. And what actually happened, Greg, was I fell asleep. I think that, to be perfectly honest, if England can get to a point where I don't fall asleep mid tournament match,
Yeah.
that's a good thing. And I think potentially there's the potential there now for that to happen a little bit, maybe.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to see a little and talk a bit more about where those sparks of potential come from and what you see. And I might agree with you to some extent. But first, a message from our partners at Bioniq.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements, designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now. Your body.
Okay, and we are back. So we were talking about England and maybe they won't be as bad when they start to gel. And there are some glimmers of hope in there, right? Before we really get into some of the really good stuff, I want to talk about something I saw on social media, which might surprise you, Zach, because I don't see as much football
Yeah, you
social
don't.
media as
You don't
you.
sit on it like I do.
But it might be the worst take I think I've seen in a long time.
Perfect.
Someone said that Jude Bellingham is massively overrated and has perfected the art of looking busy on a football pitch without achieving much. I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Okay, would you take him in your football team? If the answer is yes, then that's just what? That should be yes.
Sorry,
People
can we flash back to that bicycle kick?
people like to BS a lot. Like, I think the problem is that there's the standard. Oh, he's arrogant. Oh, what is it with us and bashing our best players? It's so weird.
Because
It's
he
such
plays
a
in Spain,
weird
mate.
thing.
He's not a true through and through Brit. He's got no interest in
Not
the
like
Premier League. He'd rather
like
play in
Beckham.
Spain.
Like Beckham. I'm sorry, he started his career in Germany after a while because nobody wanted him. This is it's such a weird thing when we have like this is one of the problems I have with following England in general, right? Is like the British tabloid media and combined with just a lot of people just get so mad and like sometimes, especially nowadays, it's anything for clicks in it. I get it. Like, good lord, we're guilty of stuff like that sometimes. You know, usually, actually, not intentionally, we do share our actual opinions, which is why sometimes it's even more dangerous. But I do think that anything like that is just strange to me. Like, you're saying that Jude Bellingham, player for Real Madrid, who's played great for us so far, played great for England so far, like is not a good player and looks busy on the ball. Sure, okay, mate. Next opinion. Like, I just don't.
I think it's the worst footballing take I've seen in and maybe since the last person who said Paul Honatru for Ballon d'Or. Unironic.
Like, he almost got Pusker Award, didn't he? So he was
Oh
up
my
for
God,
it.
he did. Yeah.
When you
I
think
forgot
about
about
it,
that.
he was up for it, mate. Like, say what you want, but no, it's one of those things, and like it's always bizarre to me, and it's interesting. I always wonder why we have such a thing. Like, and then you always start to get sort of the most weird wild card picks. Like, who would you rather have? Like, I think, to be honest, the biggest surprise for me, inclusion wise, was Jordan Henderson. But did all right, like the 15 minutes I watched him in the second game.
I think Oscar and I touched upon it without you last week, and actually, like, I see the potential for what he brings on the pitch as like being what we talked about with the Lana, but like to a better extent, where the way he sees and talks through a football match whilst he's on the pitch being more important than his sort of physical ability. Not to say that he's like completely physically incapable. He does still play in the Dutch league, which is still a league. Like,
You're right. He did go to this big money move for Saudi Arabia, abandoned that completely, went to Ajax, and then most of the clips I see of him now are just arguing with Dutch reporters. So, like, whatever. But yeah, no, it's a strange one. But it's, again, like, I want to reiterate and clarify my point. I think it's weird when we start getting on England players' backs, especially England players that have played pivotal roles in us almost getting to finals. And, like, let's face it, the way we played in the last tournament was very much we rolled the dice and somehow almost got to the end. It's strange. I still don't quite understand how we got there. I feel like a lot of the players didn't, but you wouldn't have that without moments of brilliance from players like Jude Bellingham. So I just find it bizarre. Like,
yeah, I agree. I think even in these games, he might not have had the best couple of games, but I saw moments from him that were worthy of his position at the very least. Like, he is I don't even hesitate to say generational talent. Like, he is just
yeah,
such a
100%.
presence on the pitch. Even if he's having a bad game, he is
We won.
someone
We
who
won
else to be
both those
scared of.
games, and that's not a thing you can guarantee with England anymore. Like,
That's
that's the
true.
thing. We won both those games. Harry Kane, scored in both. You know, it
Yeah.
was 5 goals. I don't really see. There's not really a lot of negatives to take away. It's the problem is that people want international football to be super exciting. It's never going to be like league football because of a lot of the factors that we've discussed. But the thing is that we do have a lot of key quality players that if you can get them even slightly gelling, is something to look forward to, in my opinion.
Yeah, Foden had a very quiet game Friday night and popped up with an assist on Monday. It got a bit of a bashing from Roy Keane, perhaps unsurprisingly. How do you feel about that? You think that
Quiet
he's still
season,
going
isn't
to
it?
be?
That's where I'm at. Like, Man City have had a rough season. You know, I don't know. They constantly play him sort of not to his position as well. This is one of the problems you've got where, you know, Carsley had the issue. Tuchel's going to have to manage the issue if you have a lot of really good players that you're trying to sort of jam into a team, and you're going to have lots of sort of these issues where, you know, we have it as Saints, right? Where we would love to put all of our best players out on the pitch all the time. But then, as we've talked about before, you know, what do you do with if you're trying to shove sort of Solomada and Matty Fernandez and Dibbling and like Aduachu and Archer? This all of a sudden you've run out of players. Obviously, to this extent, that's an insult in my opinion to compare. But like it is one of those things, right? Where you are always going to have a difficulty with the abundance of talent we have. But that's where sometimes other teams show, you know, the problem with England is it's very much, it chops and changes far more than people say. Like, people said Southgate had his favourites. He definitely did. But there are a lot of players that get chop and changed, and it's a constant chopping and changing. Whereas, you know, there is an argument there for stability as well, where if you've got people that are consistently playing for England, they can develop exactly what you were talking about, which it isn't like they have 5 minutes together before.
Yeah.
But that isn't just, I just feel like that's never going to be the way that the English team is picked, ever.
Yeah.
Because people will have a really, really good season and then suddenly get in the squad. And sometimes it's worthwhile and sometimes it's not. But then, you know, you'll have players that over time establish themselves. Jared Bowen's a perfect example of that, right? Like, very good utility squad player, fantastic for West Ham, got introduced into England and sort of there. And same with sort of Dan Burn having his first call up. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. England's a weird thing, right?
Yeah, it certainly is. All right, we alluded to points of hope and some magical moments to take away, and we will get round to that. But first, a message from our partners at Zencastr. Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out the clear winner, with 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs. It's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description and learn more about Zencastr. Okay, and we are back. Magical moments, bits of hope that it won't be as boring. Eze shining through as one of these picks that can show a bit of magic on the pitch,
that was such a good goal. And that's the thing, and that's the kind of things that he was being brought in to do. Really, really enjoyed that. Kind of brought the game back to life a little bit, in my opinion. Even though, you know, it was still strange, right? Because we won both of those games, but they were still quieter games. But like, I just don't know what else you'd want.
They were just comfortable and a bit dull.
Yeah.
There was still some good stuff, like even Kane's goal. You know, I joked around about it being a Paul Arnachi special, but it was actually a nice bit of movement and a good cross from, I think it was Rice. Just good link up, couple of good goals. Banging free kick from Reece James.
That's a good goal, and that's kind of nice to see, like, a player being reunited with one of his managers that helped him sort of get into the first team.
Yeah,
now he's gonna, you know,
it's been a bit of a rocky road with him, with injuries and the sort. Like, seemed to be a bit perpetually injured.
So many players, anyway. Like, I'm still surprised. Bear in mind that I haven't seen Luke Shaw play for United this season, and yet somehow he went to the Euros last year. Like, after also not playing for United for like a year, so like, it's very. And you know, I'm sure Chelsea fans will have a completely different opinion, but like, I don't know. I liked what I saw. Am I suddenly going to look forward to the international break all the time? No. Do I still think we're probably going to get outplayed in most tournaments? Yes. Is that going to change? No. And that's just because of the way, you know, we're not going to suddenly start playing Brazilian style football, and it's not going to be. We're not going to. It's like people want us to watch us put other teams to the sword, but like, international football is such a game of, like, you need to manage the fatigue and the minutes and stuff, because it's such rapid fire, like, you know, in tournament settings specifically, like rapid fire game after game after game after game. And if you lose somebody for like what would be a 2-week injury, you've potentially lost them for the whole tournament. It's wild. Yeah. So you do need to like concentrate on that stuff more, so it does become a bit of a boring thing to watch. But like, where I'm at is that this break was good. We
Yeah.
won both games. We kept clean sheets. Ramsdale went out injured. Wait, injured? Or you just didn't get picked? I feel right. No, I think it was the latter. Oof.
Yeah. Okay. To close off with, I guess I will ask you a question that Oscar and I discussed a bit at some length last week. Tuchel obviously has only been brought in with a contract until the end of the World Cup, so it's do or die, right? It's win or not. What do you think the chances are? Is it coming home?
Greg. I've bet too much on it coming home, and I'm a pessimist by default, and you know this. It is much easier to, it's much more preferable to me to say it's not coming home, and then we get to the final, and then I go all in, and it completely ruins my life. But you know how important it was. Like, let me tell an anecdote one time, Greg, of me and you working in our day job. We were doing an overnight, and I think we were working late. It must have been 8-9 o'clock. And I'm relatively sure we had a penalty shootout. It might have been against Ecuador or maybe Colombia, someone at some point. Obviously, this was what that first one where England had a penalty shootout for the first time. And we ran and we scored and we ran around the top of that office. We were plugging in phones. Like, that was how important, how much passion there is. But I cannot sit here and guarantee that it's coming home, mate, because that's just not in my nature. So, is it coming home? We'll find out.
Mate, I've got the red and white face paint on hold and the Badil and Skinner soundtrack.
Oh, God, no, it's going to be
loaded.
It's going to be the flags on the car and everything.
Mate, you know it. You know it all comes out once it gets to World Cup season. I'm fully in. The cycle of hope is one thing week to week for Saints, and the disillusionment and disinterest in England when it's not a tournament is fully replaced with like that massive 4-year cycle or 2-year cycle of hope as we build up to the tournament, and there's no other sports or other football to watch, and I'm like, World Cup in 3 weeks. Let's do this. Let's get on it.
When we went out the last, I want to say either Euros or World Cup, whatever final we got to, and actually there's a lot. I'll tell you why I was devastated. I just had my appendix out, and I'm sat there, and then I watched us lose, and I still can't watch penalties. I can watch like the first one or two, but it kills me to watch it. And so, like, the problem is that, and I never see us winning anything like that comfortably, Greg. That's the problem.
It's never going to be comfortable.
Exactly.
And we know that, Zach. We're Saints fans. Have you ever been comfortable with a football match? I think the closest to comfortable I've ever been at a football match was when we were in the 83rd minute of the playoff semi-final last year and 3-0 up.
West Brom, yeah?
And even then, West Brom scored.
But
no one remembers that.
No. They did score, because I remember Charlotte texted me and went, they just scored. I was like, did they? Because I had no recollection. Because it rolled in, but it didn't matter, so none of us cared. And you're right, that is the only moment. Even when we were like 5-3 up against Huddersfield after scoring like 5 goals in the second half, I still was like, we're potentially going to lose.
Yeah.
We're still going to throw this away.
You're
right. You're right, and I guess it's just like it's worse with being an England fan.
Yeah,
but I guess it's worse for other teams as well.
I guess I got lulled into a false sense of hope once. I don't think I've told this story on the podcast, but it is a funny story about gambling and the drawbacks of it. But you remember Sadio Mane's fastest hat trick in Premier League history?
Yes, I do.
Against Aston Villa. So he scored those 3 goals very quickly, and at that point, I'm like, great. Do you know what? It's like 3-1 for Saints to score the next goal. This is mad. What great odds. I'll stick a 5 on it. And then 45 seconds later, Benteke went up the other end. I think it was Benteke, and headed one in. And Greg. I'm like, yeah. So you can never be comfortable. Never get comfortable.
No, but I think that's the nice thing with us being over for England too, right? Because with it being in England, like, as Saints fans, we're not used to winning anyway. Like, even when we're doing well, it still feels weird. Whereas I think a lot of England fans, if you've got somebody that's like, you know, a Manchester United or Manchester City fan, and they're used to winning everything, and then they see England play and they don't get it, maybe that's where all the vitriol and hate comes from. It's like,
Yeah.
we're just like, yeah, used to it, mate.
Yeah. Standard, innit? Get your hopes up, blue.
Saturday afternoon.
Cycle again. Woo. All right. Well, that is just what we've got time for today. You heard it here first. It's coming home in 2026. Clip it up now.
Oh, sure, mate. Sure, mate.
Zach, thank you very much for joining me. Let us know in the comments how excited are you for the World Cup next year? How excited are you to get back to Saints football next week? We certainly are. I can't wait. Let us know. We are on Facebook, X, TikTok, Instagram, Blue Sky, on the Daily Southampton YouTube channel. You can catch short clips of us or full episodes. Go and give us a comment, give us a like, drop a subscribe. We will be back tomorrow with some more Saints-related content. Until then, we'll see you next time.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.